One shot away from history, and then this happened. One single shot. That's all that stood between Charlie Woods and the biggest stage in golf, but what happened next? Nobody saw coming. Stop scrolling. I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes, because what I'm about to break down today is not just a golf story. This is a story about a son carrying the weight of the greatest name in golf history. This is a story about one stroke, one single stroke, that changed everything. And this is a story about a moment that the entire golf world completely misread. Most people saw the headline and moved on. They said, Charlie Woods missed qualifying. Next story. But those people missed the real story, because buried inside this result is something that should make every single golf fan sit up and pay attention. Something that tells us exactly where Charlie Woods is headed. And when I show you the numbers at the end of this video, your entire opinion on Charlie is going to shift. Stay with me. We are just getting started. And before we dive in, if you are new here, welcome to Hoy PGA Tour. The channel that doesn't just give you the score, we give you the full picture. Hit that subscribe button right now and smash the bell icon, because on this channel we don't miss a single moment. Now let's get into it. April 28th, 2026. Eagle Trace Golf Club, Coral Springs, Florida. The sun is up, the pressure is real, and Charlie Woods, 16 years old, son of the greatest golfer who ever lived, is standing on the first tee with one goal in his mind: make it to the US Open. Not as a spectator, not as Tiger's kid watching from the gallery, but as a competitor, as a player who earned his spot, as someone who belongs on that stage. Now think about what that means for a second. The US Open, the most grueling major in golf, the tournament that has broken legends, ended careers, and produced moments of pure magic. Tiger Woods has won it 3 times. 3 times. His dominance at the US Open is the stuff of mythology. And now his son, his teenage son, was trying to qualify. Let that pressure sink in. Because when Charlie Woods stepped onto that course on April 28th, it wasn't just him playing. It was every expectation, every comparison, every headline, every whisper, all of it following him from hole to hole. And here is what he did under all of that weight. He shot an even par 72, even par, in a US Open qualifier as a teenager. Now, I know some of you are already saying, okay, 72, that's just average. But hold on, because average means nothing without context. And the context here is everything. We are going to break this down completely. But first, I need you to understand something important about how Charlie got to this moment. Because this story actually starts years before April 28th. Let me show you something. And I want you to really look at these numbers because they tell a story that no headline is capturing right now. 2024 US Open Qualifier. Charlie Woods shoots an .81 way. Read that again. 81, 9 over par. He struggled. He was exposed. He looked like a kid who wasn't ready for this level. The critics came out. The comparisons to Tiger came flooding in. The doubt was loud. But Charlie came back. 2025 US Open Qualifier. Charlie Woods shoots a 75. 6 shots better. That is not luck. That is not coincidence. That is work. That is development. That is a young player learning, adjusting, growing under pressure that would crush most teenagers. And then, 2026, Charlie Woods shoots a .72, even par. 3 shots better than last year. 9 shots better than 2 years ago. You want to talk about a trajectory? That right there is a trajectory. That is a player who is figuring it out. Year by year, round by round, shot by shot, Charlie Woods is closing the gap. Now here's what I want you to hold on to, because we are going to come back to these numbers later in the video. And when we do, I'm going to show you exactly what they predict about his future. And it's going to surprise you. But first, let's talk about what actually happened on the day, because the drama of April 28th goes deeper than just a scorecard. So Charlie shoots his 72, even par, solid, controlled. He finishes the round and he looks at the leaderboard. He's tied for 10th place, and in qualifiers like this, only a handful of spots are available. The competition is fierce. These are hungry golfers, tour players, mini-tour veterans, college stars, all fighting for the same limited spots. Charlie is right there, right in the mix. And then, the scores start coming in from the final groups. One by one, the leaderboard shifts. Players he's tied with start pulling away, or falling back. The margin gets tighter, the tension builds, and then it becomes clear. The final qualifying spot, the very last ticket to the US Open, is going to come down to a playoff, and Charlie Woods missed that playoff by exactly one stroke. One single stroke. Think about that for a moment. Not 2 shots, not 3, not a missed cut by 5 strokes. One stroke, one swing, one putt somewhere on that course that, if it had gone differently, would have sent Charlie Woods into a playoff with a chance to qualify for the US Open. That is how thin the margin was. That is how close he came. And that is why, even though the headline says he didn't make it, what happened on April 28th at Eagle Trace Golf Club was a defining moment for Charlie Woods. Now, you might be asking, okay, but where did that one shot go? Where did he lose it? Was there a specific hole, a specific moment, a mistake he can learn from? And the answer to that is actually one of the most important parts of this entire story. Stay with me, because we're getting there. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been one mistake away from something you really wanted? One test question away from the grade? One interview answer away from the job? One conversation away from a relationship you wanted to save? That feeling, that one shot away feeling, is one of the most brutal things a human being can experience, because you can see exactly where things went wrong. You can trace it back to a single moment, and your brain replays it over and over. For a golfer, that feeling is amplified by 1,000. Because in golf, you have time to think. Between every shot, you walk, you wait, you stand over the ball. And in those moments of silence, if your mind is not trained, it attacks you. And here is what makes Charlie Woods' situation unique. He's not just a golfer dealing with a tough loss. He's the son of Tiger Woods dealing with a tough loss, which means the entire world is watching how he responds. Every reaction, every interview, every social media post, every next tournament round, all of it is analyzed under a microscope. That is a pressure that no coaching, no training, no amount of talent can fully prepare you for. The only thing that prepares you for that pressure is living through it, and Charlie Woods is living through it right now, at 16 years old. And here's the thing, and I want you to really hear this. That experience, as painful as it is exactly what builds champions. Not the wins, not the trophies, not the easy rounds. The moments like this, the one shot away moments, the heartbreak moments, the moments where you have every reason to fold and you have to decide, am I going to come back stronger or am I going to let this define me? History tells us that the greatest players all had their version of this moment. And what they did next defined everything. We're going to talk about that coming up, because Charlie's what comes next might be the most exciting part of this entire story. But first, I want to address something, because there are 2 very different opinions forming in the golf world right now about Charlie Woods, and one of them is completely wrong. Right now, if you go online and look at the reaction to Charlie's qualifying result, you will find 2 camps. Camp 1 says, this proves Charlie isn't good enough. He missed the cut. He didn't qualify. The hype around him is bigger than his actual game. He's Tiger's son, and that's the only reason anyone cares. Camp 2 says, 72 in a qualifier is impressive for his age. He's trending in the right direction. Give him time. The kid is 16. Back off. Now, I've looked at both sides. I've gone deep on the numbers, and I'm going to tell you which camp is right. But here's what's interesting. Both camps are actually missing the real point. Because this moment is not about whether Charlie is good enough right now. It's not about whether the hype is real or not. It's not even about whether he should have qualified or not. This moment is about something much bigger, something that only becomes clear when you zoom out and look at the full picture. And when I show you what I mean, in just a few minutes, it's going to completely reframe how you think about Charlie Woods' career. But before I get there, let me talk about something that almost nobody is mentioning. Something about the conditions that day. Something that makes that 72 even more impressive than it looks on paper. Eagle Trace Golf Club, par 72. Sounds straightforward, right? But here's what you need to understand about US Open qualifying conditions. These are not normal tournament setups. The USGA prepares qualifier courses in a way that makes scoring extremely difficult. Pins are tucked. Rough is thick. Greens are fast. Every single hole is a test. And the players competing in these qualifiers are not amateurs off the street. These are professionals, scratch golfers, former tour players, players who have been competing at high levels for years, sometimes decades. Charlie Woods is 16. He is competing against grown men who have built their entire lives around this game. Men who have been playing competitive golf since before Charlie was born, and he shot even par against them. Now, I want to give you a comparison that puts this in perspective. Most players his age, even the most talented junior golfers in the country, are not in this qualifier at all. They are playing junior events, high school tournaments, maybe some amateur events. The US Open qualifier is a completely different world. The fact that Charlie not only competed in this qualifier, but shot a score that put him in contention, that had him within one shot of a playoff, that tells you something about his level, something real. It tells you that Charlie Woods does not just have potential, he has proven performance under pressure. And that is a very different thing. Now here's where I need you to stay focused, because I'm about to show you the comparison that changes everything. The comparison between Charlie's trajectory and the early career trajectories of some of the greatest players in golf history. And what comes out of that comparison is shocking. Let's talk about Tiger Woods for a second, because it's impossible to talk about Charlie without talking about Tiger. And most people bring up Tiger to make unfair comparisons. But I'm going to use Tiger's story differently. Tiger Woods at 16 years old. What was he doing? He was already a household name in junior golf. He had already won multiple junior world championships. He was already being called a prodigy, a once-in-a-generation talent. But here's the thing most people forget. Tiger also had moments of failure, moments of near misses, moments where the pressure was enormous and the result wasn't perfect. Those moments didn't define him. How he responded to them did. Now look at Rory McIlroy, one of the greatest players of the current era. At 16, 17, he was competitive but not dominant. He had his struggles. He had his close calls. And then something clicked. Look at Jon Rahm. Look at Justin Thomas. Look at Scottie Scheffler, the current world number one. None of these players burst onto the scene and immediately dominated at every level they touched. They built, they struggled, they grew. And here's the pattern that emerges when you look at elite player development in golf. The players who go on to become great are often not the ones who peaked the earliest. They are the ones who showed consistent, measurable improvement year over year during their development years, 81 to 75 to 72. That's Charlie Woods. That is a player improving by an average of 4 to 5 shots per year in one of the most high-pressure environments in all of golf. If that trajectory continues, and there is every reason to believe it will, then where does Charlie Woods end up in 2 years? In 3 years? In 5 years? I'll tell you exactly where, and the number might shock you. But first, a quick break in the story, because I need to address the elephant in the room. Let's be honest about something. The name Woods. It is the most powerful name in golf, and depending on which side of the argument you are on, it is either the greatest advantage a young golfer could have or the heaviest burden imaginable. The advantage is obvious. Charlie has access to coaching, resources, facilities, and experience that 99.9% of junior golfers could never dream of. He has grown up watching the game at its absolute highest level. He has played courses that most pros never get to touch. He has been mentored by someone who understands pressure and performance better than almost anyone alive. That is an incredible advantage. But the burden is something else entirely. Every single round Charlie plays is a referendum on his father's legacy. Every good shot gets magnified. Every bad shot gets dissected. Every score is compared. Not to his peers, not to other 16-year-olds, but to Tiger Woods, a man who is considered the greatest golfer of all time. You know how unfair that is? Imagine being 16 years old and having people judge your performance against the GOAT, not against other kids your age, not against a reasonable benchmark for a teenager, against Tiger Woods. That is what Charlie lives with every single day. And yet, he keeps showing up. He keeps competing. He keeps improving. He keeps putting himself in environments where the pressure is maximum and the margin for error is zero. That tells you something about Charlie Woods, the person, not just Charlie Woods, the golfer. It tells you about his character, his commitment, his resilience, and character in golf, in life, in anything that matters, is everything now. Let's get to the part of this video I've been building toward, because what comes next for Charlie Woods, based on everything we know, is actually more exciting than most people realize. Here's the question everyone should be asking right now. Not, did Charlie qualify? He didn't, we know that. Not, is he good enough? That's the wrong question for a 16-year-old. The right question is, what does the next chapter look like? And based on everything we've broken down today, here's what I believe happens next. Charlie Woods continues to develop. He plays more competitive events. He gains more experience under pressure. He faces more moments like April 28th, and he uses every single one of them to get better. The trajectory we've seen, 81, 75, 72, that does not happen by accident. That happens because a player is genuinely improving. Technically, mentally, strategically, across the board. And if that trajectory continues at the same rate of improvement, we are looking at a Charlie Woods who shoots 68, 69 in a qualifier within the next 2 to 3 years, a score that almost certainly makes the playoff, a score that very possibly qualifies. And then what? Then the real story begins. Because here's a scenario I want you to think about, and I want you to sit with this, because it's genuinely possible. Imagine Charlie Woods at 18 or 19 years old, standing on the first tee at the US Open, not as a qualifier who barely made it, but as a legitimate competitor who earned his spot through consistent performance, walking onto the same stage his father dominated. The same tournament Tiger won 3 times. Can you imagine the moment? Can you imagine what that would mean? For golf, for sports, for every kid who ever dreamed of doing something impossible? That moment is closer than most people think. And April 28th, 2026, that near miss, that one-shot heartbreak, is going to be a chapter in that story. Not the end of the story. A chapter. I want to step back from golf for a second, because what Charlie Woods is going through has a lesson in it that goes way beyond the sport. We live in a world that is obsessed with instant results. We see the highlight reel, we see the wins, we see the trophies and the celebrations and the viral moments, and we judge everything by those peaks. But the real story, the real journey, happens in the valleys, in the near misses, in the one-shot away moments, in the rounds where you gave everything and it still wasn't enough. Those are the moments that build the foundation. Those are the moments that create the mental toughness, the technical precision, the unbreakable belief that eventually leads to something extraordinary. Charlie Woods did not fail on April 28, 2026. Charlie Woods took another step on a journey that is going to be one of the most compelling stories in the history of golf. And the people who are writing him off right now, the people who saw missed qualifier and closed the tab, those people are going to feel very differently in a few years, because greatness is never a straight line. It is messy and painful and full of moments where you wonder if it's worth it. And then one day, it all comes together. And when it does, every near miss makes sense. Every heartbreak was a lesson. Every one-shot away moment was practice for the moment that finally arrives. Charlie Woods is in the practice, and his practice is extraordinary. Okay, I promised you something at the beginning of this video, a detail that 99% of golf fans don't know, something buried inside this story that changes how you see everything. Here it is. The players who typically qualify for the US Open from these local and sectional qualifiers, they are not future stars. Most of them are journeyman professionals. Players grinding through the mini tours, fighting for every dollar, every ranking point, every opportunity. These are experienced, battle-tested adult professionals. And Charlie Woods, at 16 as a high schooler, competing in his third ever US Open qualifier, shot the same score as the players who made the playoff. Same score, different experience level, different age, different pressure. He didn't qualify, but he competed at the exact same level as the players who did. Do you understand how rare that is? Do you understand how significant that is for a 16-year-old player who is still in the early stages of his development? He wasn't close because he got lucky. He wasn't close because the field was weak. He was close because he is genuinely, measurably good enough to compete at that level. And that, more than any score, more than any headline, is the real story of April 28th, 2026. Charlie Woods belongs, not yet as a qualifier, but as a competitor. And that gap between competing and qualifying is the smallest gap in golf. It is one shot. Now, I want to talk about something that we don't know for certain, but that we can absolutely think about. What was Tiger Woods watching on April 28th? Tiger, who has spent his entire adult life navigating pressure, expectation, failure, and triumph, was watching his son go through something that is deeply familiar to him. The pressure of a big moment, the grind of a qualifier, the brutal, unforgiving nature of competitive golf. And I think, and this is my perspective, Tiger watching Charlie shoot 72 in that qualifier saw something that numbers alone can't capture. He saw his son handle it. He saw his son compete. He saw his son take on the pressure of carrying the Woods name into a US Open qualifier and come out the other side with an even par round that came within one shot of a playoff. That's not a failure, that's a milestone. And whatever Tiger said to Charlie after that round, whatever conversation happened between father and son in the aftermath of that near miss, I believe it was not about failure. I believe it was about pride and about what comes next. Because Tiger Woods knows better than anyone. This is how great careers are built, one painful lesson at a time. So what should Charlie Woods fans be watching for in the coming months? First, summer junior events. Charlie will continue to compete at the junior level, and every round he plays is part of the development process. Watch for consistency. Watch for how he responds after a difficult result. Watch for whether that even par performance was a ceiling or a floor. Second, his high school season. Charlie is still a student athlete, still navigating the balance between education and elite sports development. How he manages that balance will be important. Third, and this is the big one, the 2027 US Open qualifier. If Charlie's progression continues, if the trend holds, he will be in that qualifier next year with even more experience, even more confidence, and a score target that he now knows he can reach. Mark that. Remember this video, because when that moment comes, and I believe it is coming, you heard it here first on Hoy PGA Tour. All right, I want to pause here and hear from you, because this story divides people. And I think the conversation in the comments on this video is going to be one of the best we've ever had on this channel. Here's what I want to know. Do you think Charlie Woods qualifies for the US Open within the next 3 years? Yes or no? Drop it in the comments right now. And here's a bonus question. At what age do you think Charlie Woods makes his first PGA Tour start? Is it 17, 18, 19, later? Tell me what you think. I read every single comment on this channel. I will be in the comments today responding. So let's have the conversation. Drop your thoughts below. And if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? This channel is where the real golf conversation happens. Hit subscribe, hit the bell. Let's grow this community together. And then there is Charlie Woods. When Charlie plays, people watch. When Charlie's scores come out, it trends. When Charlie has a moment like April 28th, it generates content, conversation, headlines, and engagement across every platform. He is, whether we want to admit it or not, one of the most compelling figures in sports. Not just golf, sports. A 16-year-old with the most famous last name in golf history, visibly improving, competing on serious stages, getting closer to a breakthrough. That is a story that transcends the sport. That is a story that casual fans care about. That is a story that brings new eyes to golf. And when, not if, when, Charlie Woods has his breakthrough moment. When he qualifies for the US Open. When he plays alongside the best players in the world. When he makes his first professional cut. When he wins for the first time. That moment is going to be one of the biggest sports stories of the decade. Full stop. Be those fans. Stay connected to this story. Because it is one of the greatest stories in sports right now. And it is just getting started. So let's bring it all together. April 28th, 2026. Charlie Woods. One shot away from a US Open playoff, even par 72. His best ever qualifying performance. Missed the final spot by the thinnest possible margin. The headlines said failure. We said breakthrough. The critics said not ready. The numbers say getting very close, very fast. The story said over. The trajectory says it's barely begun. Charlie Woods is not a finished product. He is a player in development, the most scrutinized, most watched, most expected player in junior golf history. And he is improving at a rate that should have everyone paying attention. If you're not subscribed yet, do it right now. Tap the button. Turn on notifications. Join this community. Because the Charlie Woods story is just one of the incredible stories we cover on this channel, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. Like this video if you learned something today. Share it with a golf fan who needs to hear the real story. And drop your take in the comments. I want to know where you stand. This is Hoy PGA Tour. We don't just follow the game, we understand it. See you in the next one.